You're watching the Metaphysical Mentor podcast with Michael Philpott. We are recording. Hello, Cheryl. How are you, my friend?
Michael, I'm so good. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well. I know we had a little talk prior to the recording of this podcast, and that was a little bit of a shit show, to be honest with you. I had one of those crazy astrological mess up your days, but we're fine now.
Handling it like a champ, my friend. You're doing amazing. Okay.
Yeah. We're working through it. It's a work in progress. But Cheryl, I'm so happy that you're on the show. We're going to be talking about forensic mediumship. This is a very, very cool topic. And I know you have a lot to say about it. And it's going to be a really fantastic show. So if you're really pumped about psychic mediumship, but forensic mediumship, this is going to be a really, really cool show. So Cheryl, first question, really basic one. So what is a forensic medium?
So forensic mediumship for me is really tuning into the pieces that aren't normally accessible to us as humans. You know, when I can speak to spirit directly and get communication on what's missing or where to really focus our energy on, or look for different dynamics that weren't present at the time, that's an asset. That's something that we can really take advantage of. You know, getting different communication from the environment, different items. It's really getting any piece that can help in closure and giving voice to those that have lost their voice.
Okay. So can you is the forensic mediumship just for somebody who has crossed over, like somebody or can you use it for somebody that's living too as well? Is there a difference in the two?
So I actually use it for both. I've had missing person cases that the person has been found. And I've had missing person cases where the person has been found, but not in the way that the family members would have chosen, right? So it's not limited, because really we're just accessing the information that's going to bring closure to the situation.
Okay, so a little bit, it's still psychic mediumship, but it's also kind of had that CSI aspect of it too. It's trying to locate,
So and it's a lot more specific. You have to be a lot more specific in your communication and really hone into the pieces that you wouldn't normally focus on in a mediumship read, really strengthening that intuition. And it's really subtle communication that you really have to pick up on. And a lot of times it's weird dynamics that come through. My first case, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a little bit, there was a lot of learning lessons on the differences of communication.
Okay, so how does that differ really between, let's say you're doing a reading for somebody who comes to see you just for a psychic mediumship read versus, somebody who is somebody comes to you specifically for forensic mediumship. What's really the difference between the two?
The energy.
Okay.
So when somebody's coming to talk to Nana, they're already transitioned. They've passed over. Their vibration is really accelerated. They're talking about happy things. When somebody has had trauma or a significant passing, the imprints are a lot lower vibration. There's a lot of different dynamics that have happened, a lot of effects that have happened to the spirit, the family members. You're really having to step down in your vibration to connect to the information. And it's all as well depends on the transition period of the spirit, which is something I wasn't really aware of until I started doing this work. Okay.
So how'd you start doing it?
Well, it was wild, Michael, because I always got told I was going to be working in this realm. And I was, your logical mind's like, okay, that's going to be like 6 years down the road when I'm not feeling like an imposter or something, 6 months in, right? 6 months in, I get a phone call from a couple that I had done reads on, and I had kind of blown their mind on the specifics that I brought through, and their good friend's child had gone missing.
Okay.
And as soon as I got that phone call, the first communication that I got was 48. Which I got to tell you, that was a very big, significant piece in this case. It was a child that had gone missing, and I had no details about the case. I won't work a case if I know anything about it.
Yeah, that's a smart idea. I basically the same thing when I do a reading. That's why I don't actually have a lot of followers on social media, because they're always potential clients and everybody has so much information out there. So that's why I don't always have all these people following. because I don't want to be clouded. And every time I have a client says that, don't tell me anything, just
Yeah.
give me your name. Don't tell me anything. I just want your name and the time that we're going to be doing the reading. And that's it. I don't want to tell me, who you want to contact, what it's all about. The less I know, the better. Is that the same thing that you do?
Absolutely. And I find people want to, you just need to know. And I'm like, no, because a lot of the times what they know isn't actually the fact. And also a lot of people will ask me, did you see this case in the news? And I'll be like, no, don't tell me. Because I even got randomly a call from New Brunswick to work a missing person case there from a friend of the family's. And if I would have known anything in the news about that prior to, I wouldn't have been able to work it. Right. So it's funny, you have to kind of disconnect from that stuff and not engage in it and ask people to kind of not share things with you so that if that just by chance happens to come your path, you're okay to work it.
Yeah. So are you able to talk about your first case? Are you able to give details for it?
I am. So the only thing about when I speak about my cases is I won't give names because there's no benefit to that. I don't want to exploit family members or anything, but it was a really significant piece for me on learning. And the most beautiful part about it is afterwards, the mother really supporting me and coming back and confirming and validating all these things because she saw the significance of my work and the importance of it. So it was really beautiful. But I got this call about this child that was missing, and it was a really big case I made all over Canada, which was incredible. The spirit of this boy was just beautiful. And we dropped everything, and I hit the road. It was, and I started channeling immediately. Now at this point, I never confirm to somebody if somebody has passed or not. That is the responsibility of the law enforcement. I can only give hope or information that's being provided because I, at all times, never want to do more trauma to somebody than there already has been. And that is something huge, right?
Yeah, I think that's really important because, there's always that off chance that you may have misread the information. And it does happen. It's happened to me too as well. And the last thing you want to say, oh yeah, this person's alive. And they get their hopes up. And then all of a sudden they find the child that found the child's body. And obviously the child is not alive. And it's like, okay, there goes your credibility out the goddamn window. Really. And I understand that.
Well, and it was funny too, because this child was really specific on showing me that he was alive and that there was relevance between finding him between 4 p.m. and 8 p.m. There was a significance around this time period, and 4 and 8 again came up, right? Okay. So I get out there, I meet the family, and right away, my first task that I do is I ask for a metal piece of an item that's connected to the person. So I use my psychometry to connect specifically to the spirit. So it kind of is like a super enhancer, like a Wi-Fi boost or something connecting to the spirit.
Okay. So let me just stop you there. For those who are listening, can you just maybe explain what psychometry is? Because it's really an amazing tool. Yeah.
So it's taking the energy imprints off of items, environments, different things like that, and utilizing the information connected to it to read, to kind of hone in on something specific. So for me, metal items are the best to read off of. Clothing, the energy gets washed off of it, so it's not as strong. Hair is a great tool as well because it's really unique to an individual. Letters sometimes can be good as well if the energy is connected to it, right? So, but I always ask for something metal. In this case, I got the child's inhaler. So I connected directly to the child and started confirming and making sure I was connecting to the right energy. And then we hit the road. And this is where the environmental information was really significant for me in this case. I was getting a lot of energy imprints. The last moments where a really emotional situation occurred. I could feel it. I could feel all the physical symptoms, and we had to go to a different location. There was a 3-point location that kept being shown to me, this triangle dynamic. And So we went to this environment, and I did not realize that this was in the media. There was a reward, and how many people and mediums were assisting in this case. So this is where I learned about soliciting services. There were so many mediums flooding this poor mom while she's living her nightmare with maps, information, connection pieces when she was never asking for them.
Oh, wow.
And as you're on the case and you're working right beside her the entire time, you have to explore these things, because what if, right? There's a human being at risk here. So you have to explore these things. But it was interesting too, because I had learned afterwards that there was a generational imprint of another child who died at the similar timeline. And to me, I got two very different communications of what had happened. And I felt like a lot of these mediums were connecting to the past timeline.
Okay, let's just talk about that for a second. Now you're talking about the separate timelines. Now you were talking about an individual who has already passed, that's is in the same environment as the child. So everybody's picking up on the energy of the child that's crossed versus the child that is missing.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was a lot for somebody's first case. This child.
That's your first case.
That was my first case. This child has gone missing. And the other child had gone missing and had been found passed. And it was even around the same timeline in the winter and everything.
Wow.
It was wild. So these mediums would call with this house and like very specific details about this house of where this child was connected. Well, it was the child's mother's house.
Okay.
So people kept going to that house and reaching out, and she's obviously reliving her trauma.
Of course.
Because, right? Like, it was horrific. So nobody was actually validating if the information they were receiving was on track or not. They were just handing over this information, and it kind of led to this crazy goose chase. So I'm on the ground with the mother, and all of a sudden, out of the blue, this medium comes that just started driving out from the city because she had specific communication from this child. Okay. She had just had surgery the day before. So obviously the intent was purely genuine, and she, was rushing to the scene to show us where he was. Well, she took us on this crazy detour. And this is how crazy spirit works. Because when she
listen
showed
here,
up,
just to hold on. You're preaching to the choir, sister.
Right?
Yeah.
It's crazy. But she showed up at 4:00.
Wow.
Okay,
Interesting.
now I kept telling the mom, I got the mom to bring one of their dogs that was significant, was really connected to her child. Okay. And I said, this dog's going to find him. So this woman shows up, takes us all the way to the other side. And I had also kept stating to her, look for the footprints. He keeps telling me to look for the footprints. Okay. And you're looking at the snow, there's footprints everywhere. So it doesn't make sense, right?
Of course,
you're like, this doesn't make sense. And this is also another little tidbit. Don't mean to jump around, but the day before I got this call, I had a reading with Karen Shepley, who's an animal communicator. And she had done my power animal totem pole and told me how they're dying to work with me and utilize me. So I started putting this into play on the work that day, because the significance of that was like, what? So driving out there, I told Spirit, if we're going to find him alive, I want to see this deer. And if we're going to find him, but it's not the conclusion I'm asking for, I want a raven in front of me. Okay, so just hold on to that.
Okay.
So we go on this crazy detour, right? And we're walking, and I'm like, there's no energy here. This is not making sense. It was really messing with me because I kept getting like random hits, but nothing that I did at the original location. And the original location, by the way, had campsite 48 right beside it.
Okay, that's some crazy stuff.
Okay.
Okay, so let me just figure this out. So Spirit sends you a message, right? You'll be getting 48. So you're getting 4 and 8, 48, 4 and 8. And again, like anybody who's done mediumship work or, has been to a medium, they'll say numbers, and it doesn't make sense to us, but it makes sense to them. So 4 and 8, 4 and 8. This other medium shows up at 4, takes you on this wild goose chase. You kind of do all this loop around.
Yeah.
And then the original spot you thought originally were going to start was campsite 48.
Yeah.
And she started that. But you wanted to follow her lead just to make sure you cover all bases, because, sometimes, other mediums are, really, really highly accurate, and she could be picking up with some. So why not use it?
Yep.
But it didn't really pan out.
No.
So now do you go back to the original campsite?
This was the wild part. Okay. So
What do you mean this is the wild part? It's all kind of wild.
This is where it gets really wild. Okay. Because
all right.
we're in the middle of nowhere. Okay. We're in the middle of the ice. It's this huge lake at this point, and we're in the middle of this ice by this little island. My truck is way, way, way over there. And the island that I originally pointed to the mother when we were at the place that I was getting the energy imprints, and I asked her, could he be there? We're there, and all of a sudden she looks at the island, because I also told her with the footprints, I said the footprints are of significance to you and you alone. Nobody else will know about the footprints, which again makes no sense, right?
Of course.
So all of a sudden she realizes she took the kids out to the island I had originally pointed at earlier in the winter or the previous winter. And it was a really special outing that they had. And she had taken pictures of the kids' footprints in the snow.
Okay. Yeah, this is getting creepy. This is pretty cool though. Yeah, go on.
Like, it's like, what? So I said, you need to get over there now. And I said, you need to take the dog and he's going to find your son. Okay. And this was at 6:00.
So this is 6:00. So it's dark.
It's starting to get dark.
Okay.
Yeah. Like it's getting there for sure. Okay. So at this point, they randomly send one snowmobile over. So I can't go on with her. Spirit blocked me from going.
Okay.
Okay. And I had to march all the way back to my truck, which was like a 45-minute walk. So it was like me getting all the way around there and finding my way in this place that I have no idea was not an easy task.
Yeah. Now, just give you a little bit of background. So this is in Saskatchewan, right?
Yes, this is in Saskatchewan.
All right. So for those who are listening and not familiar with Saskatchewan in the wintertime, think of a desolate area with super, 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 super windy and cold and lots of snow. And you've got Saskatchewan. It's let's just say, I'll try to say it politely. It's a bit of a, living hell in the wintertime there. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy cold.
It's not pleasant.
It's not. Yeah, that's a good way of saying it. It's not pleasant. That's a very good way. So that gives you some context of what's going on, right? So think about it. Saskatchewan, in the middle of winter, it's getting dark out, and we're looking for a missing child.
Right. So I turn around to walk back to my truck, and what happens? A raven flies in front of me.
Okay. All right. So that's one sign.
So I'm like, oh, and then I'm really torn because I'm like, do I go? Don't I go? And I'm like, I can't go. They blocked me. For me to walk there, it would be 2 hours to walk there. Right. So I lost track of Mom at that point, and I went back to that peak. And at 8:00, I had no more contact with the boy. I went radio silent.
Wow.
And what I learned after was that's when he ascended and transitioned.
So did the mom find the body of the boy?
Something happened at the island and they didn't find him, but the next morning, another crew of people found him there. So
he was there, but they just couldn't find him with the lack of daylight.
Yeah. And I kept telling her that he's buried under pine, and the people found him buried under stacks of pine pine stuff. And he was in this little nook far away. So I think Spirit also knew that they couldn't handle it. And they had to have somebody else to find him, which honestly, I was just so thankful that A, they found him, and B, that it wasn't the parents that found him, because I can't imagine that.
Yeah, that would have been really traumatic. I mean, it was bad enough they were living a living nightmare, but then they have to have, find their son. It was a son, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, find the son. Yeah.
And then I told her, because her and I connected afterwards. It was about a month after. She reached out at Easter, which I couldn't believe she was holding space for me about a month after this occurrence. Okay. Like, the gratitude I have for the connection with her son and the family is more than I could ever put words to. But she went through all the pieces with me and confirmed all these things, and was just, really, like, I think she was just making sure that I knew that I did what I was supposed to do, because I wanted to quit after that case.
Yeah, of course.
Wow. I was driving home at 1 a.m, and Spirit was flooding me with like 111 text messages. I had a white fox go across the road. It was like, keep doing this, right? And then she followed up and confirmed with me all this stuff. And I told her, I said, I think something's going to happen on day 48 that's going to be really important. Well, day 48 came, and I had to phone her and apologize, because I said, it turns out day 48 was for me. That was my next missing person case.
Wow. Yeah, mind blowing, eh? Wow. Isn't
that wild?
Yeah.
It was wild, Michael. Like, and this boy's spirit was meant to do incredible things on earth and on the other side. He is hands-on with me in my cases. He is my spirit guide now, and he's doing incredible things.
That's pretty cool.
He floods me with dimes. Like, I get dimes in the weirdest places, and he laughs every single time. His mom gets dimes. When her and I went on a walk once, we're standing in the parking lot. We were talking there for half an hour. We both look down. There's this brand shiny new dime in between us.
Yeah, I love when Spirit gives you messages like that. Like, you always ask for a message, and, here's your message, and there it is,
Yeah.
It's amazing how that shows up. So did the mom come for a reading afterwards, after the conclusion of that? Did she come for a reading and try to reconnect with her son?
So I always delay that as long as I can. Like, I assisted and provided, as much comfort as I could to her during that transition period. But really, I really like to wait about 6 months, because the transitioning process of a spirit can be it could be different for each one. I find that children transition a lot quicker, and they're really strong when they go on the other side, because they come in very clear. But he had a period where he really ascended even higher than most spirits that I connect to. Like, he is incredible at his ascension. I can't even describe it. I can't put words to it, but he is bigger soul than I've ever experienced.
Yeah, I mean, even though he he probably was an old soul in some ways, and his short time on Earth was just that. It was just that he needed to have this final lesson, and he may not have to reincarnate again. He may have to. That's it. Like, he had one and done. Like, he felt he had to complete this mission. He did it, and it was kind of in a brutal way, but he went through it, and now he's on the other side. Now he's doing more work on the other side, assisting you.
Yes.
Which is, I think, is really cool.
And everybody, really, it's, it was put to me in terms of the birthing process was really hard, but worth it. I mean, when he transitioned, he was laughing, he was celebrating, he was telling jokes, he was connecting with everybody. It was wild. But I think the big learning piece for me was the separation, because I literally channeled him for 2 days.
Oh, wow.
Oh, and I would never recommend that. I had no idea what the process of releasing that was. When I got confirmation that they found his body, it literally felt like my skull was separating in two. I was on the floor. I was, sick as can be. It was very painful. And thank goodness for Karen giving me information on my power animal that was medicine, because I called that in. And it took quite a while to heal from that physically. And I learned from that the importance of finding people to assist you, because really nobody I had known had ever experienced anything like that.
Yeah.
And you need your peeps to help you heal.
Yeah, I think that's really important, and especially in doing this work, because you're actually raising your vibration up. So if you had to think about, and the idea of raising your vibration, there's only so much energy your body can hold for a period of time without it. It's like anything. It's like you're just basically, if you go to the gym and work out for 24 hours and then go back in for 24 hours again and try to work out again, it's that same thing. The body just doesn't want to do it. And it takes time to heal that afterwards. Especially with that connection, that energy.
Oh my goodness, like physically, but not only that, your logical brain is trying to process everything, whereas your spiritual brain is combating it. So my logical brain is like, why does that happen? Why couldn't I get conclusion on that when we were supposed to? Why couldn't we say, like, it was just all this stuff. And then my spiritual brain was like, no, it happened exactly the way it was supposed to. You served your purpose. You did exactly what we needed you to do, right? So you have to acknowledge all the logic and process it, but then you have to surrender to the spiritual side too, that we can only do so much, and we will be blocked. We will do what we're supposed to do and then be removed from the situation. And we can't be all. We're not meant to be all. We're still human, right? So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I find that, in my own readings too, when I do readings for people, there's a lot of information I get. I don't see all things, especially when it comes to trauma. Like I don't see sometimes I'll see specific incidences, but not like a continuous trauma, but I will see the trauma itself, but I'll be kind of blocked from that because I really don't want to see that sort of thing. And I mean, as much as I love, helping people heal, and it's important to, sometimes a lot of the trauma gets buried. And when I do the readings, it does come to the surface that needs to be looked at and healed. I usually don't want to see the trauma itself. I mean, I'll be showing a little bit of it and I'll hear exactly what the trauma is, but they won't always show me. And I'm kind of thankful for that too, as well. Cause there's some heavy shit out there. I mean, I've had my own shit story of life, and I know there's other people that have it 10 times worse than I do. And sometimes it's emotionally draining. It just knocks the snot out of you.
And you don't want somebody else to relive that again, because really the purpose is to how to get them to move forward from that. It's not to relive it, to experience it. It's how can we benefit and move forward and heal from that, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's wild. I had one case actually with the missing child in New Brunswick that they really blocked me on a lot of different aspects, which was interesting because the child came up so strong and so clear on so many things. I'm not good at astro traveling yet. I'm working on it and I'm really excited about it, right? But I have a hard time unless I'm in the environment to read the communication. But I got really strong communication about where she was, and really weird things like purple flowers, which in the environment that she was, it's not a normal thing. And I was blocked because the person who had murdered the child, even though he had done terrible things, he wasn't ready to accept that he was a child killer.
Okay.
It was wild. And I had to try and merge with him. I had to try and understand what was happening during the process. I got so many pieces of it.
Okay. So hold on. You're trying to merge with the person that's crossed over, or the person that murdered the child?
I got told it had to be with the person that murdered the child.
Okay. Okay. That just sounds a little bit batshit crazy. Why would you even, I mean, that's a really dark energy. Like, I mean,
yeah, but here's the weird part about this person was there was this good element to them at once upon a time, and they had gone through this path that really hindered who they were as a person, right? And he still had elements of himself that wanted to have morals and ethics and like opinions and structure and abide by things. He had this weird dynamic within himself. And, but he wasn't able to accept that he had murdered a child.
So he was really disconnected from his actions.
Yeah. And I had told the individual there's significance around this time period. And they had sent me an article stating that they had found the body then.
Okay.
So, and then all of a sudden everything had switched his energy wise, and now things will start coming. But it was interesting too with this case, because sometimes we get shown that conclusion is not going to be necessarily with that case, but connected to revealing other cases connected. And that's where they're going to hammer the bad guy.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Sense?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like if one murder, you can't solve one murder.
Yeah.
There may be another murder down the road that you may be able to solve that's connected to the first murder that will give proof about this. So just basically adding the evidence, you're stacking the deck to make sure that you have all the information that's going to prove that this person did this horrible, horrific thing.
Yeah. That was the first time I learned that dynamic, because it was like that kind of situation that had happened. And I'm interested to see how that concludes. That's still like in process right now, but I'm telling you, every case that I've worked, they've shown me different stuff, because there's a lot of stuff to learn in this realm. Who knew?
Oh, yeah, exactly. Have you ever experienced times where you haven't got anything? Like you just want, like, there are some days where I can't read a newspaper. Like you didn't get any information. Do you ever have a day like that where it's like, I'm not getting anything?
No, I had one reading once where I was like, oh my goodness, I'm not even going to ask for a testimonial. It was so bad. And then a month later, she sent her husband because she thought it was so good. So I haven't had that yet.
That's awesome.
You should have seen my face when he said that he was her husband. I was like, what? Because literally for a month, I beat myself up over this read that she was like blown away with. So I thought that's really funny, but yeah.
No, yeah, because I was always wondering, because sometimes, like you were talking about being blocked, right? And spirit will make sure that you get blocked for certain reasons. And again, they know more than we do. They got the kind of the bird's eye view of what's going on. They have a better understanding. So that's what I was kind of more getting at. If you were just mainly blocked for a period of time where you weren't getting any information just for your own healing or your own benefit.
Yeah. Or even just like where I am in my journey. Sometimes they'll block me just even on conclusion. Like they still give me a lot of information and a lot of details that are valid and that need to be like either looked at differently or explored more, or having some emotional resolution around. I haven't experienced it yet where it's just been radio silent for me. But I have had blocks on either the conclusion due to somebody else's energy, or even mine, perhaps, maybe I'm not ready to know the big spectrum yet. So I always challenge myself on different things, especially when there isn't resolution on it, because I want to give that voice to somebody who's passed and hasn't had that opportunity. That's my calling. I give the voice of truth to those who can't speak it anymore. That's my life goal.
Yeah, and that's such a powerful goal too, as well. So are you currently working with the police, or was most of these cases brought by just the individual families?
So far, I'm just working with the individual families. I know that at one point I will be working in that realm. Spirit's been very strong with me on that. I have no idea how that's going to happen, but I mean, eventually it's going to line up. So I feel like this is just the building process of getting the trust and recognition and, tools to do that.
Is there a network right now that has like a specific, for missing child, like for, like, say, for psychics and stuff like that? Is there like a psychic network dealing with specifically missing children at all?
You know what? I don't even know about that, but I know here in the community, there have been a lot of psychic mediums used in the task force now. They've really expanded their views on it and really used that as a resource. Now, again, I don't solicit my services. You know, it's interesting because there's a famous case in Saskatchewan around Tamara Keepness, a child that went missing a long time ago. And she is very strong with, I think, any healer I've ever met. And this is a case that's ongoing in Saskatchewan, always gets publicity every year. And to me, you know, different stuff like that, you can't just throw information because you don't want to waste anybody's time either.
Yeah.
But if somebody comes to you, then you can give the pieces that are needed. I feel like when you're meant to serve, they will move mountains and put you in that path. Like,
Yeah,
look
that's a
at
great
my
thing.
first case.
Yeah,
right?
for sure. Like that's, I mean, if your first case out the door, let's have a big one there and let's just kind of throw you to the, you know, it's like, let's throw you to the wolves and let's see what happens. You know, there you go.
And I mean,
Wow.
I was in a totally different place in my, you know, practice then. I mean, I wasn't as confident. I was, you know, still wary about things and felt imposter syndrome. And since then, my growth is really just like, so
Well,
it's
that's,
been.
yeah, that's an understatement for sure.
Poor Michael's been with me since the beginning.
And your growth has just gone like, yeah, I think you were being mildly. It was like you started here and then now you're like, they're like way up here now. So, I mean, it's so amazing to see. Now, are there any cases that you won't work? Are there any specific cases that you go like, you know what? Yeah, I ain't touching that.
Yeah.
I ain't going
so
there.
My second case was a big eye opener because it was an individual who was dealing in, you know, her addictions.
Okay.
And I was connecting and I saw a lot of stuff that scared the crap out of me.
Okay.
I didn't have the protection of the police. You know, you see human trafficking, prostitution, forced drugs, different things like that. So now I'm very specific on not working with somebody who's gang related.
Makes
and
sense.
Yeah, it depends on how old the case is. If there was intense drug addiction or prostitution or anything connected with that, until I have protection of the police, I probably won't engage in those cases unless they're like 15, 20 years old. I was a little rocked in that. Luckily we found her and my information connected. And it was good. But I think the hardest part with addictions and missing person cases is that you always have to explain to the family, even though you might find them, they might not be ready to give up that lifestyle. That might not be their bottom. And this was one of the cases, which was really hard.
So basically this family was looking for their daughter, but she just had such a strong addiction that her addiction took her to the darkness.
Yeah.
And so they were looking for her because, you know, obviously she's gone underground because it's all about the addiction at that time.
Yeah.
So basically they asked you to help locate where she is so that they can try to, you know, basically try to rescue her in some ways and try to get her clean and stuff like that. But like anybody who's ever worked with addictions, until you hit your rock bottom or until you really hit your rock bottom, once that needle gets a hold of you, it's.
Yeah. And the interesting thing for me too was the aura. A lot of people don't know, but the aura is the expansion of energy with us, and we connect to that, and that's how I connect to energy and the communication of somebody. And when they're in addiction, the aura is really low. It's really depleted. It's hard to tell if they're on the verge of passing.
Yeah, well,
right?
It makes sense.
It's a really low energy. So you can't really get clear communication from them specifically, but you try and connect to the environment and the different elements connected to them, right? So you kind of have to shift your approach on things.
Have you ever tried to connect to their higher mind? Or if their energy is so low and you can't connect with their aura, their energy because their life force is there, have you ever tried to maybe connect with their higher mind? And maybe their soul
guides,
mind? Yeah.
Their guides. I try to connect to their guides and they show me different pieces and stuff. And in this case, they showed me the person to connect to. And when I got shown their picture, I was like, that's the person they're flagging me. There's something relevant. And she was hiding out in their basement. Right. So it was like, you kind of have to shift your approach, your dynamics, and really kind of think outside of the box to collect the information, which I think is, you know, the difference between regular mediumship work and doing the forensic of trying to get the resolution to it.
Yeah. So like how many cases have you done so far?
So I've done 5 cases, but I've done 2 really cool cases where people came to me because the passing of their father, coincidentally in both of them, didn't sit right with them. One of them, one of them was interesting because I was doing a read for them. They had 17 siblings that had passed. So it was
how many?
17. It was a huge family. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. And the sister to these siblings came and she was older and she was really skeptical. She wasn't open to this stuff. And I blew her mind within 5 minutes. So by the end, they decided to ask what I saw in regards to their father's passing. So I told them the situation. And I also said, but here's the interesting part that they keep bringing me to. There's a man that walked across the field, saw the situation of your father dying, and then walked off. And they all gasped because they knew something didn't add up. So what happened was this father was trying to put out a fire on this tractor right beside the home so that the home didn't burn down. And the smoke inhalation had choked him out and he died. But the neighbor across the way who hated the family and hated the kids, he was this single man who was a bitter, terrible person, had walked over because he saw all the smoke, saw the father laying there, and just walked off.
Oh my God. Wow.
And this man had passed since and came with shame and ownership of it and confirmed it with me on the other side. But he was even a jerk in the other side. I don't think people realize a lot of times spirit hold the same kind of like.
I heard this quote once, when we talked about mediumship, just because they crossed over, a Catholic will always be a Catholic, whether he's on this side or the other side. That's to be a side. If somebody's got an asshole in this lifetime, they're going to be still having to be an asshole in the other lifetime too, as well.
Right?
So that's so true.
So it blew their mind because they finally got closure on this and it never sat right and they were able to move forward with it. And it just, you could see the weight being removed from their shoulders. It was really beautiful to be a part of that and provide that for them. And then another one was very interesting because her father all of a sudden got really sick in the hospital, passed, but it was right before he was going to sell his company. And she didn't tell me this part. She asked me what I saw. So I told her and I said, somebody pulled the plug. Somebody hid this. It's your mother. She killed him. And she confirmed it. She said, I always knew she did. I always knew it. And
so basically she wanted to make sure that the company stayed with her.
Yeah.
So,
and it was within 2 weeks she killed him. She had 2-week process of getting him sick and then killing him before the documentation signed. Okay. And she became a millionaire at that point.
Now, was this provable that she murdered she pulled the plug?
No. So, but what is interesting is the daughter is doing a podcast of her life events, which were incredible. Like she is a survivor like nobody's business. But I said to her, what about the sex trafficking? Because she had never told me about that. And this woman attacks children and she does it all over the States and Canada. Okay. And I said, when you do this podcast, you need to really direct it in certain spots. I gave her and I said, what's going to happen there is it's going to open the floodgates of the other children who were victims from this woman.
So it's going to basically allow people to come forward and you really build a case against this person.
Yeah, because everybody thinks they're individual on the abuse. Everybody thinks they're alone on it. They don't recognize that she has been abusing people all over and she's part of a network.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was like, this is how you're going to do it. This is the way you're going to do it. And this is what's going to happen when it happens. And I can't wait for this to occur because the father was so strong on it. He had no idea what was going on. He was a victim just as many others are. Yeah. But it's also incredible how people hide behind their wealth and their money and avoid a lot of different dynamics, right?
That's always the story. That's going back in time. The rich, they get away with a lot of stuff,
Oh my God. Like, I was just like, how is all these pieces missed? So there's an urgency around this case now, due to another child being in custody with her.
Wow.
So I was like, let's like, I am pushing spirit on all levels for this case. I'm like, we are concluding this.
Yeah. Just let you know, karma's a bitch, motherfucker.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Don't let Opie come after you because she hammers down.
It's I mean, that's, karma is going to, it's going to catch up with this person. And she's going to have to repay it back 1,000 times over. So, justice will be served. I have a good feeling about this too, as
absolutely.
well. Justice. Yeah. And my spidey sense went off on that one. So,
right. How cool is it when those things like come? Like what are the chances somebody, from halfway across Canada is going to connect with little old Regina Opie and, we're going to hammer some bad guys, right?
Yeah. And I think that's really important. And also the closure work. So, speaking of Opie, we had this conversation before. So how did you come up with the name Opie? Because all I think of is Andy Griffith. I think of the Andy Griffith show, Opie. Do you remember that show?
I'm too young for that.
Oh, come on. You got to remember that. Ron Howard, that was his first,
No, I actually, the Sense of Anarchy is how I got Opie.
Oh, Lord.
So what happened was I went through this like horrific divorce, and I was really ashamed afterwards, right? So I was very much an abuse victim and didn't want to tell my story, and trying to find myself. And through this, I was connecting to the gym, which was an empowering experience, connecting to the positive community there. And if anybody knows gym life, you don't know each other's names, right? You talk to them every day. And it's like, hey,
how you doing? Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you spot me? Hey, can you spot me? Yeah.
So I had created my Facebook account under my cat's name, which was like my soulmate Opie.
Okay.
And they started finding me and calling me Opie. So it was like this badge of honor, because Cheryl was like this wet rag who didn't have a voice and was like hindered and quiet and just a people pleaser. And Opie was this bad ass that was like unstoppable, boundaries, hard ass. Like, you did not mess with me. Like, it was like one guy came over once and was like, can you keep it down on your deadlift? So I was like, I think the women's section's over there. That's how Opie rolls. You should have seen his face.
Yeah, I bet. I bet. Yeah. Especially it was like one of those really, because mostly you see those guys in there who are really just it drives me nuts, though, to be honest with you. And they grunt so loud, like I think they were lifting like 5,000 pounds. But it's, it's like maybe 100 pounds they're lifting. But yeah.
I was deadlifting 225. Like, it's not going to go down like it was feathers. Okay. It's going to have a little pop at the end.
So he was upset that you were clanging your weights on the ground. You were dropping them?
Yeah, but it wasn't like a hard drop. I was doing like a good dead, right?
I thought you were maybe doing a power grunt, and that's what he was upset about. Oh, no. He's probably upset, but you were lifting more weights than he was.
Yeah, my starter, it was his...
his max.
His max out.
Oh, what a putz.
Right? So that's how Opie was born. And when I started my business, I was like, Opie is my heart. I lost him in the divorce, and he's my babies. And I love that nickname for myself. And then connection. I mean, what better than connecting those to the other side, right? The connecting pieces in my work. That's what I do.
Yeah, I think that's just fantastic. And, it was quite the little story there. And I am so proud of you. Like, I mean, what's been happening with your movement from, just like you said, like this, just doing readings to now doing all this, forensic mediumship, and then you're teaching now, and then now you're doing like, stage, doing readings. And I think that's just fantastic.
Thank you, Michael. I couldn't do any of this without you. You're fantastic. People don't know.
Now you're going to make me blush. Thank God I got better lighting here so you can't see me blush.
I sent you a message and I'm like, hey, do you think I've been watching your show. Do you think you might be able to like help me with this one area? And Michael's like diving in, giving it all. Like, I'm like so grateful for you. You're incredible. Just as a human, your heart is like huge. And what you do in your work is just, I'm just so thankful for you and your channel and just everything connected. It's like, we're soulmates.
Yeah. Yeah. You're my sister from another mister.
Right?
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Oh, thank you so much. Well, Cheryl, you know what? We're almost out of time.
That went really fast, Michael.
Yeah. Like it really does. Like that's one thing that surprises me about the show. And now I can understand why like Joe Rogan does like 2 hours and sometimes 3 hours on a podcast, because you can just get into the flow. I mean, hopefully I'll get there one, I'll have that type of audience. Maybe you can do like 2 hours. But that being said, Cheryl, if people are looking to get your services, they want somebody to help them in forensic mediumship or just to have a reading in general, or they want to take some courses, where can they find you?
So I'm on schedulicity.com and you're going to look up OPIES Connection, OPIES Connection. And I'm also on Instagram and Facebook. I don't have a website, but that's my social media stuff. And if you have any questions, you can just send me a message or you can send me an email at opiesconnection@gmail.com.
Yeah. And I'll have all that information in the description below, whether you're listening this on Spotify or Apple. Just, scroll down a little bit after the description, you'll see Cheryl's information there. And if you're watching the video on YouTube, again, I'll have all that information in the description below so you can find Cheryl. And if you want an amazing reading, and if you're out there, if you're a parent or something like that who has a missing child case, give Cheryl a call. I think it'd really help you with closure and just really help you along with that. So that being said, Cheryl, we're going to close out the show.
Thank you, Michael.
You're quite welcome. So I'm just going to close off the show here. This has been the Metaphysical Mentor Podcast with Michael Philpott. Thank you so much for joining me, and goodbye for now.